We're going to start, and maybe we talked about this the last time, and you are a yoga teacher. You help people with breathwork, mindfulness, Reiki, and EFT. Maybe you should share with the audience, like, how did you start on this healing journey of yours? I mean, you got to start somewhere, right? I mean,
yeah, exactly. And it all starts with, I think it was the first thing that you said, the yoga. So about 20 years ago, I was rear-ended twice within 3 months of each other. And so I had a really bad like whiplash and neck and shoulder pain. And I was going everywhere for help with it. So massage therapy, acupuncture, chiropractor, like you name it, I was trying it. And all those are great modalities and helped momentarily, but nothing was really helping the pain more permanent. And funny enough, my dad kept telling me, go to yoga, try yoga. And he knew nothing about yoga, never done yoga before in his life until after I became a yoga teacher.
This is really interesting. Yes.
But he just knew enough about it. And so I could have been a year or two that he was just kind of on my case about it. And finally, just to shut him up, I called a friend. I'm like, hey, my dad really wants me to go to try yoga because of my neck pain. Like, you want to come? There's this 10-week course in the Parks and Rec guide. And she's like, yeah, that sounds like fun. I've always wanted to try yoga. So we did this for the 10 weeks. And I remember enjoying the classes. Like, it was very relaxing and peaceful, but I never did it at home. And then the 10 weeks were over and that was done. And then shortly afterwards, I developed insomnia. And I don't even remember how long, if this was weeks or months, but it was a long time, literally just staring at the wall every night, could not fall asleep. And I was complaining about to the same friend that went to yoga with me. And she's like, well, why don't you try that yoga breathing we did in class? And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm willing to try anything. So that night I went to bed, not expecting to sleep at all. And then I remembered, oh yeah, I'm supposed to practice this breathing. So I lied in bed, started the breath practice, passed out immediately. I was like, wow, my goodness, like really? Like I could have solved this issue. Like I've never had insomnia again in my life. That was it. And so that was kind of one of the aha moments. I'm like, okay, maybe there's something to this. Mm-hmm. Forgot about yoga again for a while. Mm-hmm. And then still dealing with this pain every once in a while. I'm like, oh yeah, remember that stretch that we did in that yoga class? And that really helped with my neck and shoulders. So I started to dabble in it. The odd occasion, still not a lot. And then sometime after that, me and some friends were going to a gym together, and they announced that they were doing yoga classes there. It's like, oh, let's go try out this yoga class. And I like that yoga class before, so I should try it again. And this one was terrible. It was obvious now to me that she wasn't a yoga teacher. She was like a fitness instructor that like did some yoga and thought she could teach it. So it was like, go, push yourself. And I knew enough. I was like, that's not yoga. So me and my friend just looked at each other like, we're never coming back to this class. And we never did. And then I had another bout with it and I hated it even more than the second experience that I had. And so again, kind of just forgot about it altogether. And then years later, another friend said like, hey, there's this new hot yoga studio that opened up. Like, do you want to go try it out? They have this great deal. I'm like, I'll give it another try, sure. And I went, immediately fell in love with it. And because it was a hot yoga studio, the heat really helped to stretch out my neck and shoulders. And so I continued to go like 3, 4, 5 times a week. And I remember after every single class, the teacher who was the owner of the studio, or is, would ask every single student, like, how do you feel? And every single class, I'd be like, oh, amazing. And I would just walk out of there like I was floating on air and just feeling so good. And several months go down the line, and I'm still going to these classes, and I'm lying at the end of class in the studio, and the teacher's still talking, and I'm like, wow, she's got the most amazing job. She just like gets to help people feel great every day. Didn't clue in at that point. So again, more months go by. I'm still going, still loving the yoga, and just feeling so great physically. And then the key for me was how my mental health had shifted. So my background is I was suicidally depressed for the majority of my life. And like I mentioned, the insomnia, I had PTSD, anxiety, all of it. And I was starting to shift and realizing, I was just feeling better and better all around. So that's how that started. And then more towards the end of that year, I kind of had this thought one day. I'm like, I wish I could do something that would help people healing with pain, because like I know what it's like to deal with, because I suffered with these injuries for so long. And somebody suggested, like, I thought, you'd be really good at massage therapy. And I'm like, I've actually considered that, but me being hunched over a massage table all day isn't going to make my situation any better. It's just going to make it worse for me. I'm like, I wish I could do something that I can help myself at the same time as helping others.
Yes, yes.
And then this light bulb moment went off. I'm like a yoga teacher. And so immediately I'm looking online, like, how can I get trained in this? And funny enough, I was, where I live now, this is where this all happened, but I moved back home and now I'm back again. But I found a teacher training on this smaller island that's 20 minutes away. And my uncle lives there. And so like, well, this is just perfect. So I got to live with my uncle while I did my teacher training there for a month. And that was almost 13 years ago that I became a yoga teacher. And so then shortly after that, one door opens and then all these other things start presenting themselves. So then I found out about mindfulness-based stress reduction, so meditation techniques. And then I got into, I have this rule that if I hear about something at least 3 times, then I know it's the universe telling me, you got to look into this.
Yeah.
So within a 2-week period, I had 3 different friends that all mentioned Reiki to me. And I had never heard of this before. Like, what is this Reiki? Okay, I got to look into this. So I look into it, I'm like, this is totally up my alley. I'm like, how did I never hear of this before? Like now I need, so then I went on a hunt to like get certified in that. And then sometime after that, I got an email one day and it's talking about tapping, EFT. And I'm like, okay, this is a little strange, but I'm intrigued. Like it's all energy work. Okay. And how are you
Strange it is. Yes. Everything.
Yeah. So, and so then, again, another thing, okay, got to learn more about this, got certified in that. So yeah, and it's just all these amazing techniques. And so my issue was when I was younger, so I was diagnosed with depression when I was like 19 or something like that. And immediately doctor's like, okay, here's the drugs for you. And I didn't want to take them, but I knew I needed help. So I'm like, okay, I'll try this out. And I just felt worse after taking it. And I didn't even take them for that long. I'm just like, no. And I had a lot of friends that were on different meds and, they were always complaining about how much worse they felt. And I never understood, why are we giving somebody a drug that's making them feel worse than they already felt? It just didn't make sense to me. So yeah, I immediately went off the meds and I'm like, this is just who I am. I'm just going to be depressed for the rest of my life. Never in a million years ever think that I would find something that would cure that. And yeah, here I am today, like completely the opposite of who I used to be back in my younger days, being completely depressed and suicidal and just thinking there was no way out. That was my mindset for many, many years.
I'm so curious, like, do you have this, do you feel this depression and suicidal thoughts creeping in at any point right now? Like, I'm just...
That's a great question. And I was thinking last year during the pandemic, because I live alone and I was also sick and possibly had COVID. And so I didn't want to be around anybody because I was terrified of, getting somebody else sick. And there's been so many times during last year that I'm like, this is a situation where I could have fallen in such a bad depression, being isolated, sick, completely alone. Like I don't have family here, right? That's in where I live, close by, an hour and a half away, but still we can't see each other. But it was during the last, and even the year before the pandemic started, I had a very stressful year. And I realized that I'm just so much quicker at noticing. I'm like, okay, like, something bad happened. I can see myself spiraling, all those negative thoughts and starting to listen to them. And I'm like, no, I don't want to go back to that place. And that's been what it's been for me for the last few years. I'm like, I know how bad I can get with my depression. And so I'm like, no, you've got to do something that's going to like shift your mood immediately. And so whether that was yoga or whether that was breathwork or whether it was meditation or tapping or just going out for a hike, I knew that immediately in that moment I had to shift myself because I just so badly did not want to go back to that old space. So not that it never happens again. Like, yeah, I definitely had some moments where, yeah, things, you know, can really affect you. But yeah, I'm just so much quicker at noticing what I'm feeling and like, okay, what do I have to do to get out of that headspace?
That is so good. Yes.
And yeah, and amazing that I'm even at that point now that I can just recognize it so quickly. But yeah, you know, you feel it. You start thinking all those thoughts and you start feeling all those negative feelings and your sensations in your body. And like, no, like I don't want to feel this anymore. I know what it's like to feel better, and that's how I want to feel.
I think this is so precious because you know, sometimes, because it is a spiral when it starts and then it just goes downwards, and there are people who will say, which to a certain extent, humans in general, we are addicted to a certain feeling, right? And then when there's nothing around you, when there's nobody, you know, you want to have that feeling, be it negative or positive. And then when it starts, it just goes downhill from there. So it's really amazing what you do. And that is resilience, you know, that is really resilience. It's not just holding your fort and like bracing through the whatever that comes, but it's really just recognizing it and making that shift like you mentioned.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it took a long time to get to that place, but I'm so grateful that I finally was able to move on from that, because yeah, like I never thought I would be alive at this age, never mind even like 20 years ago or 15 years ago. And like, so the fact that I'm alive and well and happy is pretty remarkable for me, knowing just how bad everything was back then.
Wow, this is really amazing. And you would attribute this to all of the work that you do with yoga, breathwork, meditation, EFT.
Yeah,
Reiki.
yeah, and that's why that I want to. Yeah, and then I also, Reiki was in there too. I forgot that story. So yeah, and it's just amazing how as soon as I was open to like, okay, here's one healing modality, which for me started as the yoga, and then all these other ones just popped into my life. I'm like, okay, yeah, the universe wants me to know this stuff, obviously, and yeah, it's been an amazing journey.
And so let's just say, so when you have this negative, okay, you mentioned you do yoga, meditation. Do you do Reiki as well? I'm just wondering how Reiki, when you're feeling the negativity as well.
Yeah, like I haven't been, we talked about this last time, that I have had some health issues. And so last night I was doing a meditation. I'm like, I'm just going to do Reiki on myself while I do this meditation. And I'm like, I need to do this more often. Reiki is the one that I don't often do, but yeah, do some self Reiki on me.
And I think the big thing about all of these modalities is that it really heightens the awareness that you have for yourself.
Yes.
The similarity between all of these modalities, at least whenever I learn about a new modality from people I talk to, I realize the key thing is really awareness here, and you're just so much more in tune with what's going on inside you, and that's
exactly
precious.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, you have to be more in tune with your body. Like when we're feeling ill, it's our body's way of telling us that something's wrong. We need to check it out. Most of us just ignore it, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse. So yeah, realizing, and even with just your thoughts, this was a big aha moment I had in the last year or two, where I realized, well, if every negative thought I'm having about myself, all those self-doubts and fears, if that's making me feel bad, either physically or emotionally or whatever it is, if I start thinking the opposite positive thought and that starts making me feel good, well, isn't that my body's way of telling me that that's the actual truth, and the negative thoughts that I'm listening to is not the truth? And then it just kind of hit me, and I'm like, that makes so much sense.
Yes,
so
yes,
that's what I do now with my tapping practice is, I'll notice whatever negative feeling it is, and then switch it, to that positive phrase. And I'm like, that's why tapping works so well, because you're shifting your mind to believe the true statements rather than listen to those negative inner critic thoughts that are going around in all of our heads all the time.
Yeah, and it's just, it's just so, it's like your body is always trying to tell you something, and And you're completely right. It's trying to show us that the right way, or rather I don't know, is there a right or wrong to this, but the way is to think positively,
Yeah.
or if not,
Yeah.
at least as neutral as you can be.
Exactly.
Both
Yeah.
sides of the coin.
As I got more into tapping, I found out that our brains are actually wired to think negatively, and that's ingrained in us from like caveman days, where you had walked out of your cave and you had to be worried that you're going to be attacked by a wild animal. Well, we don't have those worries now, anymore.
Yes.
But our brains are just wired to think that way, and it's us to like consciously like, no, let's shift that thought to something that makes me feel better.
Right. That's a big point. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And we always think it's so easy to think positive, but I remember for every negative thought, you have to have 3 positive thoughts or something to balance that negativity out.
That I haven't heard that one, but I have heard that like 90% of our thoughts are negative. Yeah. 90, like we have so many thoughts in our heads that go by through and just negative upon negative. And that's what's so great about meditation, because when you're actually in meditation, so many people, I struggled with meditation for years, but so many people think you just have to meditate and quiet your mind completely, which is impossible. Nobody can do that.
Yes.
But the key is to notice each thought as it comes in and just be aware of it. Like, okay, well, why am I thinking that I'm a terrible person? I know that that's not true, and then using those moments to like, well, if thinking that thought's making me feel bad, then how do I want to feel? I want to feel good. So what thoughts can I put in my brain that are going to make me feel better?
It's really about just highlighting that, like, why are we feeling this? And may or may not come up with an answer, but the fact that we put it out there and objectify it, right? I think that's so great.
Yeah.
I'm just really curious also about the difference between, like, maybe share with us the difference, or how would you define breathwork, mindfulness, meditation, like, because to some of us it could be a big jumble altogether.
Yeah. So with meditation, is just quieting the mind. So like I was just saying, just pay attention to those thoughts as each come in, and rather than grabbing on that one negative thought and then spiraling out of control with that same thought, be aware of it, notice it, and then, okay, like, why am I feeling this way? How do I want to feel? And just being still with yourself. And it's a time where, when you are quiet and just being in tune with your breath, that you can be more intuitively guided. So last night there was something that I was wanting to do, and I kept hesitating on doing it for a while. And in that meditation that I just mentioned earlier to you, where I started doing Reiki on myself, all of a sudden I had all these like intuitive downloads, like, well, why don't you do this? And I'm like, I've been stressing about this for like weeks and months, and then just all of a sudden it came to me, and I wasn't even looking for that answer at that time, but it came to me because it was obviously something that I've been thinking about for a while. And if you're not taking those moments to settle down and connect with your breath and quiet your mind with meditation, you're not going to be able to hear those thoughts come in, because you're listening to all the other ones. So yeah, it's just all about quieting the mind and slowing down. And so the best way to do that is focus on deep breathing. Most of us take these shallow little short breaths into our upper chest, and the shallow breathing puts us in fight or flight mode. And so that's when we start thinking worse and worse thoughts, because our body's like, okay, we gotta be ready to go here. Something's happening. I'm not feeling right. And when you can take back control and start to deepen your breath, then your mind starts to calm down, and then you can have those more positive thoughts come in because you're more open to them.
So that's meditation then. And then breath work would be, you also mentioned yoga, breathing.
Yeah, so the easiest breath work that you can do is just deep breathing, which is, I usually tell people to start off with at least a count of 3. And then as you get used to it, then you can bump it up to 4 or 5. So you breathe in slowly for a count of 3 or 4, whatever it is. And then you exhale slowly for the same amount. And then there's other ways you can do it too, that when you take a shorter inhale and then a much longer exhale, which really starts to calm you down. And it's the quickest way to do it. So that's why when I was saying like I had insomnia, cured it right away, because I was able to, and I don't know what was going on in my life. Obviously I was really stressed out about something at the time, but once I got into that breath, I just calmed down, and that's why I was so easily able to just pass right out.
So let's say someone is experiencing very strong emotions right now. Would the person be doing breath work first, or would they be going to meditation?
I would recommend breath work. That was my big aha moment. And just like I said, just a simple deep breathing. That's all you have to do. There's a whole bunch of different styles of breath work that you can do, but that's the simplest and fastest way that you're going to calm your mind and just start to feel. And also, as you're doing that too, your whole body and your muscles are relaxing, which also just enhances the feelings of calmness, because you're losing all that tension that you have in your body when you're stressed out and anxious.
And am I right to say that mindfulness is really just paying attention to either
Mm-hmm.
the breath, if you're doing breath work, or meditation when you're more aware of the tool?
Yeah, exactly. Or just something simple like going for a walk. You can just like watch as each foot hits the ground one after another, and that could be your like mindfulness meditation in a walk. Or you're just looking at the trees in the distance, just something that you're focusing on, and just being grateful and like of your surroundings, and noticing and being aware of what's around you. Because again, that'll get you out of your head, because you're focusing on what's around rather than getting all caught up in there.
And should we try? Because, I love this. And that time you mentioned, I asked Laurah-Lee about the definition and all that. And she's like, we should just do it. And I was like, yes, we should just try it. So for our audience listening in, if you're not driving or you're not doing anything strenuous and you want a breather, let's do this now, huh?
Yeah. Okay, perfect. All right. I love doing this. Okay. So sitting comfortably. So it doesn't matter where you are. I'm sitting cross-legged on the couch, but if you're sitting on a chair, just have both feet on the floor, and lengthen your spine. You can roll your shoulders back and down away from your ears, and just gently tuck in your chin, close your eyes, and then just tune into your breath right now. Noticing where you feel it in your body. So like I was just mentioning, the short, shallow breaths into the chest, is that where you're feeling the breath? Or do you feel maybe down into your lower ribs or belly? And once you've kind of gotten an idea of where you're breathing, we're going to start to lengthen those inhales and exhales. So in your next inhale, actually, no, before you do that, place one hand over your heart, one hand over your heart. And then on your next inhale, I want you to slowly count to 3 as you feel your belly start to expand, your rib cage starts to widen, and then you should feel that top hand on your chest start to lift a little. And then slowly exhale, the chest will go down, rib cage in, and your belly softens. Just continuing to breathe deeply, feeling your hands moving in and out with your breath. And then if you want to try something a little different on your next exhale, I want you to sigh it out through your mouth. And then you can do that again. Inhale through the nose. Exhale, sigh it out. Just taking a couple more deep breaths. And just noticing if you had any tension. I always have a little stiffness in my neck and shoulders because of my old car accidents. And as I start to do that, I just feel everything in that area start to relax a little more. And most of us don't even realize that when we're stressed out and anxious and overwhelmed, our shoulders start hiking up closer and closer and closer to our ears. And then we wonder why we have neck and shoulder pain. And so I'm constantly reminding my students, like, just relax those shoulders, let them relax away from the ears. And then as you continue to take a couple more breaths, notice if you feel any sensations in your body, maybe something that doesn't feel so good, maybe a little constriction in your chest or tightness in your back or belly. And then if you're noticing that, then I want you on your next inhale to imagine you're breathing into that space. And as you exhale, you're releasing all that tension out of your body. And you can choose whether you want to exhale through your nose or exhale through your mouth. I find as I exhale through my mouth, just my body relaxes even deeper. And whenever you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. Welcome back. How are you feeling?
It's so good.
It's amazing, right? And it's so easy. It's so simple.
It's so simple. Yeah, I know. And I've got to be honest. I want to do just 10 minutes before I sleep. And sometimes the mind comes in, oh, I'm just going to bed now instead of doing this. But every time I do this, it just helps so much in terms of my voice is even calmer right now, right?
Yeah. I can see your whole body is even calmer. They always say that if you burp after a meal, it's a compliment to the chef. I always say in my yoga classes that they fall asleep at the end of class. It's a compliment because I relax them so much. And I have had students snoring at the end of class.
Yay.
And I'm like, all right, job done.
Oh gosh. So it's perfectly fine to fall asleep during meditation and
oh yeah. So like I was saying that I struggled with meditation for so many years because I was still in that mindset. Like I have to like quiet all the thoughts, and it was impossible. And then, you know, you see all the Buddhas sitting there cross-legged, and I'm like, my legs would fall asleep right away and my back would get sore. And so I finally went to like, hey, I really want to get better at having a regular meditation practice, but it's all so uncomfortable for me. And then I'm like, well, I don't have to sit cross-legged. If I want to sit in a recliner, I can. If I want to lie down on the bed or the couch, I can do it. And so that's what I started to do, so that I can be comfortable to be able to just relax and actually meditate. So that's what I did. So now I just meditate wherever I am comfortably and not in an uncomfortable spot.
yes, it doesn't matter because the breath is always there, right?
Exactly. It doesn't matter where you are when you're doing it. How you're sitting, yes.
Yes.
Well, if you fall asleep, that's great. Then you needed to sleep. So good. Good on you.
yes. And then I think we are, well, at least for me, like I have this, I need to do more and more. And then there's a voice behind that says, oh, like, you know, you beat yourself up. Say you fall asleep or something during meditation. And it's like, because you're not supposed to fall asleep, you're supposed to meditate.
It doesn't matter because our bodies heal themselves while we're sleeping. So if we're not getting the good sleeps, which a lot of people are because they're so stressed out and all that, then our body can't heal itself. So if you're falling asleep, that's just your body going, okay, I'm so relaxed now, I can fall asleep and we can start healing.
Yes. And I think chronic fatigue is something that is rising, and it affects such a huge population group. And especially now, you can be at home all the time, but it doesn't mean you're well rested at all, right? Especially when you can't compartmentalize. You know, back then you can go to office and you leave work there, but right now everything is at home.
Exactly. Yeah, there's no separation between work and home life now for a lot of people. That's so true.
Yeah. So, you know, if you're listening in right now, if you can take like a deep breath in between your day, I think it would be so helpful.
And all it takes is a minute. Like, I don't know how long we did that for, but really all you have to do is to deep breathe for a minute and you're going to notice a difference. And then if that's what you start, if you're going to meditate on your breath and just start with a minute, do that. And then build up to 2 minutes, to 5 minutes, to 10 minutes. And then you're eventually going to want to do longer because you know how amazing you feel when you do it.
Yes. Sometimes I there are days when I get that, like, oh, I just need to not move and just sit for a while. And because
listen to your body.
yes,
Yeah.
and
if it tells you need to rest, you need to rest.
yes, and the thoughts can be really overwhelming. Like I myself practice yoga, but the first time, the reason why I started looking for yoga was because, you know, I used to dance a lot when I was younger. And then when I started working, I realized I couldn't remember the dance steps. Like I would go to a class and then I would zone out because the mind was just so noisy.
About your day, right?
Yes, and then I realized, oh my gosh, my mind is my brain is failing me. I'm not focusing on anything, and that's when I went to look for yoga.
Yes, yeah, that's great.
I wanted to ask you something. So this is a personal question, and if any of you are going through this, this may be helpful. When you sit for a while, I like sitting cross-legged, but after a while, I get numb. And then the moment I get numb, and as much as I try for the mind to, you know, separate it out, that numbness is fine and that we just sit with it, but I can't. Like it's just, oh, it's so numb after that. Like you have this tingling.
I know exactly. That's why I couldn't meditate for so many years, because I'm like, okay, no, my legs are asleep immediately. My brain won't shut up. I'm done with this. So my tip on that is get out of that position. Find yourself a better position to sit or lie down so that you can be comfortable, because it's just going to get more numb and then pins and needly, which is like kind of painful.
Yes. Oh. So don't even start in that position at all, or change halfway.
Yeah, well, you can start off that way. Like, I mean, sometimes I start in cross-legged position, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm starting to go now. Okay, like now I'm gonna stretch out my legs and sit, you know, lean up against something, and then I'm like, okay, no, that doesn't feel good. I'll just lie down.
Okay.
Yeah, just experiment, see what feels best for you. But knowing that if you are lying down, you will probably fall asleep. But don't beat yourself up about it, because that's perfect. That's what your body needed. So just go with it. That's good.
Oh, that's great advice. That's great advice. You know, I wanted to ask you about your work. Like when a client comes to you, right? Because I know you help people aside from yoga. You really help them through their wellness. So how do you do this? Like, do you teach them yoga, or is there, you know what I'm asking? How do you?
Yes. So I'm doing coaching, one-on-one coaching right now. I'm going to be launching a group coaching program in the fall. But so what I'm doing is I'm helping I call them solopreneurs. So anybody that's working online, either transitioning from in-office to online, or just wanting to start their own business online. And there's just so much that you need to know and do when you're starting off online, and just so much information. It's really overwhelming. And so because I've had this experience now, 2.5 years of doing this online, I have all these tools that I know of to make things a little bit easier for moving into the online space. And then once they're, you know, learning a little bit about the technology side of things, we'll say, and then they're getting stressed out about it because it's all new technology that they never used before, that's when I'm like, okay, well, let's take some deep breaths. Let's get calm and centered, and then we'll move on from there. So whatever it is, and it's just kind of intuitively, I'm really doing it. So whether we're doing breath work to get them through some challenge that they have, or I have a lot of them because they all know that I'm a yoga teacher. Like, well, I'm dealing with a lot of anxiety and stress. Like, do you have yoga for that? I'm like, of course I do. Yes. Like, you know, so we'll do some yoga, or we'll do some tapping to get through those limiting beliefs that we were talking about earlier, and those fears and self-doubt. And so, so that's now what I reached down to, is helping other entrepreneurs through all those struggles of learning this new technology, because there's so many. I've done multiple coaching programs myself, and because they're at a higher level, they're like, okay, well, you need this program and this software and this and this and this and this, and then you have like a $500 to $1,000 monthly bill, and you don't even have any income coming in. And so over the course of time, I realized, wait a minute, there's so many either completely free or inexpensive tools that you can use to help yourself out, and then get your income and clients coming in first. And then once you have that, then you can upgrade your plans to something more that's going to make everything flow more easily for you. And that's what I found was what was missing in the coaching space. Was like, okay, you're giving people all these great tools and advice, but they don't have the income to support that, and then they just fail because they're just losing money every month.
Oh, that's really interesting, because when you're starting off a business, I think you get very stressed, right? That's one. And then of course people will tell you that you have to work, I don't know, not 24/7, 36/7 or something. And,
Yeah.
and you just have to, I don't know, it's crazy. Like you go through this emotional ups and downs all the time.
And you're alone. You don't
yes.
have, and it's like coworkers to get help and support from. You don't have a boss to go to. You're the boss.
Yes.
So it's what's so amazing, because as my clients are struggling out about things, I'm like, okay, well let's talk this out. Let's figure this out. Let's breathe. Let's tap. Let's yoga. Whatever. And then they're like, then that's when you have those moments. Like I said, you have that intuitive hit that comes to you, like, oh, well, what if I do this? Like, oh, that would solve all my problems. Like I said the other day, yesterday I was doing my meditation, and all of a sudden something that I've been trying to figure out for weeks just totally came to me. And I'm like, okay, yeah, like, why didn't I do this weeks ago? I didn't think to sit there and meditate on that problem. Even I need to be reminded to do it sometimes. But yeah, it's incredible. I love it.
I see. And you're just about starting out this one. Have you started?
I've been doing the one-on-one coaching,
right,
and
right.
I'm going to be launching group coaching because I've been in so many different group coaching programs, and I love that you have this community of other entrepreneurs or whatever it is that you're in this program with, and then you become friends and you have your whole support system, and it's just, it's amazing. So I'm like, I want to do this as group coaching. So that's the plan. Yeah.
That's so great. And how, so do you have any client stories that you can share on this?
Yeah, so one of my favorite clients, we started working together earlier in the year, and I was so immediately connected to her because I found out that she wanted to help people with mental health issues. And I'm like, yeah, that was my whole life. So I love that you want to do that. And so, we were doing all the different practices, and the other thing that I'm really got involved in, and it started like kind of off and on for over the years, but really got into it last year, was law of attraction, manifestation. If you're familiar or not familiar with the movie The Secret, I highly recommend watching that. That's where all the came from. Yeah. I remember I actually watched that in my yoga teacher training back in 2008. Yeah, that was part of our training because it just kind of connects with everything. And so we were working on, manifesting what we wanted in our business and using vision boards. And she was saying she had on her vision board that she wanted, this new vehicle. And then shortly after she put this on her vision board, her family vehicle broke down, and it was going to be crazy expensive to repair. I think it was the transmission had blown or something. Anyway, and so they're kind of stressing out about it, and then they're going to look for vehicles, and she ended up manifesting herself the newest model of a BMW SUV, which wasn't even what was on her vision board, because she was on her vision board was something like cheaper and not fancy, and she totally manifested this amazing vehicle. And there was something else too that it was just amazing that she manifested. But anyway, and so just seeing them story, and it's all because they're letting go of those limiting beliefs. They're actually like believing in themselves now. They're like, yeah, this is what I want. This is what I want to go after. And that just keeps them going forward and wanting to continue to just do better and better by keeping up with the practices. And yeah, it's amazing. I love it.
And wait, how did you manifest a BMW?
I guess that her and her husband had gone looking for cars, and they just happened to see this one, and she's like, oh God, no, my husband would never let us go for this. It's so expensive and fancy and blah, blah, blah. And so they left that dealership, and then, they went around looking at other ones. And then they went home and her husband's like, well, I think you really like that BMW. Like, what do you think? And she was like, just shocked. But ever since she saw it, she was like, I really want this BMW, but not telling him that, just like, quietly manifesting in her mind. And then, yeah, within, I can't remember, it was 2 or 3 days, they ended up going with that BMW. And she's like, I never in a million years would have thought that he would have been, okay, let's take the most expensive vehicle on the lot.
Oh, wow. That's just such an amazing thing. And,
Yeah.
and this is a, I find it a challenge to voice this through, because I feel like all these modalities, and as much as I try to say, and I tell people all the time, your physical and your emotional are completely related. They're not separate, and they really affect one another. Meaning, if you change the physical, you can change the emotional, and if you change the emotional, you can change the physical. And all these modalities that we have help us with that, but also it helps us with shedding all these beliefs that we have on ourselves, including, I want to say, including beliefs you have about life in general. But again, it's not a separate thing from life, like we are not separate entities. And we say things like, let's go back to nature, but we are part of nature, like, what, we are not a separate thing, we are part of nature. And yeah, it's just so hard to verbalize this part, and I think this is what you're doing. And you can see it completely clearly that with your help, although it sounds like you're just helping with entrepreneurs dealing with anxiety,
Stress, overwhelm, fear,
overwhelm, the technical things on how to start a business, but at the same time, it's all these beliefs using the same techniques. And that's it's just amazing, really.
Yeah, it was funny. So my first experience with coaching program was 2.5 years ago, and that was a good and bad experience. And I was so stressed out, like I said, learning all that technology and not getting any support from the program. And that's what I realized. And like, because everybody always talks about you have to niche down, you have to niche down. And I always struggle with that. I heard that right after I became a yoga teacher. I'm like, well, yoga is for everybody. Everybody needs yoga. Like, I wish we were taught this in schools, like when we were kids. Like, how much better would we be as adults once we learn all these techniques as kids? And it's starting to happen more and more schools, but I can't wait for it to be like mandatory part of the curriculum. That would just be amazing. And any level, from preschool all the way through university, college, everybody needs this stuff. So when I started with the coaching aspect a couple years ago, I'm like, well, who am I going to niche to? Because my whole idea was I want to help people with their mental health. And I'm like, but everybody, can use it again to help with their mental health. And then I look back at where I was the year before and just struggling. I'm like, that was me. And and then so what I did, so while I was going through that coaching program and so stressed out, I had those moments where I'm like ready to throw my computer out the window because I'm so sick of the technology I'm trying to learn. And then I'm like, no, wait, get away from your computer, go sit on your yoga mat, go for a hike, go breathe, just step away from the technology and then come back to it. And some of those times of maybe going on a 2-hour hike, some of those times maybe I sat and breathed for a minute. And then again, something would hit me and I'm like, oh wait, no, now I think I know what I have to do, and then figure it out. and it all comes back. As soon as your mind and body is in that calm, centered space, then things come to you. Your body is actually open to receive the information that you need. The universe wants to help you. They want you to succeed. So you got to just be open to listen.
And again, this is the great skill that we were talking about. Like you can actually catch and stop the spiral, because the spiral will be you throwing out the computer and you saying this doesn't work, and you throwing the towel in, and
And that happens to so many of us. And when I mentioned this coaching program, so there was a lot of good and then there was a lot of bad. And so many people in that coaching program didn't succeed. And it was because of the poor, coaching that was done. And so, yeah, it just made me so sad. I'm like, I know there's so many more people that are struggling because they didn't have the help and support they need. I'm like, I struggled with my mental health my entire life by myself. Nobody knew about it. It was my biggest kept secret that I ever had for so long. Until I finally got to the point where I had to start telling people about my depression, and then realizing, like, just talking about it is so helpful. Like, that's when I found out that all of my closest friends were suffering as well, and none of us knew because nobody was talking about it.
Right.
So yeah, it's like, we need to talk about this stuff. We need to reach out for help, whatever it is, whatever, if it's business wise, personal wise, just somebody is gonna have something to say that's gonna help you.
That is so true. And yes, I think a lot of people go through a lot of anxiety, especially, right? I think generalized anxiety is huge these days.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it probably relates to each other, but anxiety goes hand in hand with depression, or
well, in my case, I always felt that stress, anxiety, and depression were all one in one.
Yes.
All in one.
Yes.
But I know there's people that just suffer from anxiety and just suffer from depression or just suffer from stress. But for me, I had everything. So I guess it depends on what it's all about. But yeah, I always thought that they you can't have one without the other was my whole understanding of it. But
it's just amazing to see where you are right now, and oh gosh, I just wish more and more people would hear this, because look at you. You didn't even think you could survive up to this age, right? That was what you said.
No, yeah. Like, I never thought I'd make it past 25. I'm like, no, like, life sucks. It's never going to be better. There's just something wrong with me. This is just who I am. This is how I was born, right? Like, all those thoughts that you tell yourself. That, yeah. Like, I never thought that I would not be depressed one day. Like, never would have imagined that could happen, that could possibly, because you don't hear that from the doctor. Oh, you're depressed, okay, take this medication for the rest of your life. Well, what's that solving? Like, you're just supposed to cure me, like.
And to a place where you are helping other people with it, and just wow, such a light, Laurah-Lee. It's amazing.
Yeah, I love it. I'm so grateful. I realized once I got into yoga, I'm like, I finally found, and that's what I realized actually with my depression. Sorry, I'm jumping thoughts because more came.
Go.
But when I was depressed, I had nothing to look forward to. I wasn't passionate about anything. And then once I found yoga and realized how much it was helping me, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I can help other people that are suffering as well. That's amazing. And then I had my purpose. And then what I realized with depression was, it's because you don't have your purpose. So you have nothing to look forward to. You have nothing to excite you and push you forward. And so that's a huge thing. It took me until I was 35 or something like that before I figured out my purpose. And it will come to you at who knows when. It could come early on in life. It could be later in life. But my tip on that is just keep focusing on what you love, what makes you happy, and then find something that works in that. And that's why now all the modalities, like, these were just hobbies in the beginning. And now it's become my whole career because I love it so much. I'm so passionate about it. And I just want to share as much as I can with other people because it's helped me transform my life entirely.
I just do not know what other words to say this, but it's really, I'm trying, in my mind, I'm picturing a younger you to now you, and I just want to commend you on the tremendous
thank you
put into where you are today, and now you are a beacon of light to other people who are going through similar things.
Thank you. Yeah, if I just help one person, that's what I always just tell myself. If I can just help one person, like, I've done my job. Yeah. Because like, I struggled my whole life alone. Like, I had nobody to talk to about it. I was terrified to talk to anybody about what I was going through. And I don't want people to suffer in silence and by themselves. Like, everybody needs somebody to help them through, mentor them and coach them. So yeah, I love it.
You know, I was talking prior to doing this podcast, I was telling Laurah-Lee that, you know, both of us would probably sit down on a coffee. If we meet one to one, face to face next time, we'll probably sit down and talk 4 to 5 hours on this topic alone and how great this modality is. And I feel the same right now. Like I could just go on talking to you about this, but I really want to hold you back anymore. And Laurah-Lee, you're currently teaching yoga online as well, right?
Yes. So yeah, I'm doing yoga classes online right now, 2 a week, and then I have a meditation class. And my meditation class is actually a combination of everything. So we do a little bit of seated yoga, breathwork, guided meditation, and tapping. I include it all. So yeah, I love that. I just came up with that idea earlier this year. I'm like, wait a minute, why don't I do a class and do everything together? Because I used to separately do workshops, like tapping workshops, and I'm like, oh yeah, I can just make this into a class.
Totally just do everything together.
Yeah, and it's great.
Okay, so I'm gonna put up the social handles for Laurah-Lee, and you can be able to see in the show notes. And if you are an entrepreneur starting out, let me really just tell you this: it's really an emotional roller coaster ride. And it's just you and yourself, but it doesn't have to be, because she's here. And you really need someone. I think that was my big thing. Like I felt so lonely when I first started out, and I was just.
And you can't even talk to your family because they will have no idea what you're talking about. Like I tried to explain what I do to my parents. They're like, okay, I don't understand what you mean, but good for you.
Yes, and it takes people in similar life stages, going through similar things, to really understand what you're going through. And these people are hard to come by unless there's a specific group that you can meet together, that are genuine, that are connected. You know, I mean, you can find any other groups on Facebook, but that doesn't mean that it's a connected group of people who are of similar mindset. And I think that's so important in the journey.
Yeah. You got to find your support system somehow.
You got to find, and you got to build this support system yourself, because if you are starting out on your own, you are really on your own first, and then you build everything, including your support system.
Exactly.
No, it's really amazing talking to you, Laurah-Lee, and I'm going to include all the social media handles, where to find her in the show notes. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I love this. This was great.
Yes, me too. You know, and I'm just so happy that we spoke. And one day I'm going to go to Vancouver Island.
And I'll come visit you in the Philippines.
Yes, I'll probably be here for the next 2-3 years, but
I've always wanted to go. One of my cousins, she's half Filipino, and so she always talks about how beautiful it is. So
she always talks about what?
How beautiful it is there. I'm like, I can only imagine.
It is, and there are just so many places I haven't been, and the sea, the water, the nature, it's really beautiful. Like they have so much, and I just wish I mean, no, we're off the podcast already, but you know, I just wish that the government would treat them better, in the sense,
right,
creating economy for people. And sometimes when they're so poor, it's really difficult, and you see so many of them, and you don't know what you can do to help them. And all it takes is just one typhoon, you know, and then it blows the roof off, and then oh gosh, and the whole and it's sad, right? Like the poor people cannot really build proper roofs, and the typhoon comes and blows off the roof, and then they spend this money just to build a roof for the next typhoon to blow it off again.
Right, I know.
It's so crazy. Yeah, it's so great talking to you, Laurah-Lee.
Yes, I love this. Thank you for reaching out.
No,
I don't know if I told you this last time, but I've had multiple people keep telling me that I have to start doing podcasts, and I never really had an interest in. Like, I just started listening to podcasts. I on the odd occasion I had, but last year I really got into podcasts, and I'm like, yeah, sure. and now I just did one on Wednesday. I did another one on Wednesday, and another one coming up, and I think it's amazing, and the universe is guiding
Yeah.
me.
Yes, yes. No, it's so amazing to see your growth, really. I
Yes.
just because I wish people would see more. And I think the part about depression is that even though as a friend I would come and tell you that, hey, maybe you should consider doing this, but I think if you're in that um, during that state of mind, it's very difficult to take anything in,
You're not
right?
you're not gonna listen to anybody. Yeah. No.
And only
No.
you can help
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah, and that's actually on my website. It all starts with you,
Yes,
because
yes,
until you're willing to make a change and know that you need to do something different in your life, it's not going to get any better.
yes. And it's, oh gosh, I'm gonna send this out to more and more people as well, to let them know what they can do.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you
Thank
for
you
doing
so
your work,
much.
because what you're doing is amazing as well.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to edit in the introduction and the ending just to round it off. But yeah, I mean, we couple aromatherapy with all of this, but I've always believed that aromatherapy is a passive thing. Like there's an active and the passive modality, it's like aromatherapy. But the active
Mhm.
thing that you can do, and it should be something like yoga, like something gentle movement. It should be an active movement, and then you can pair both of this up together for a
Yeah.
greater well-being, really.
Hmm. It really does. It's all combined. We
Yeah.
need a little bit of everything.
Yes, and the beautiful thing about yoga is that, I mean, I went to see an osteopath. People talk about chiropractic sometimes, but they just fix you up at that point in time. How you got into that physical situation in the first place was a
That's what
habit
I'm looking at.
yeah, the way you walk, the way you carry yourself, your everyday using of your shoulders, that you have to change. I cannot be just coming to see the chiropractor whenever I have a problem in my back, but
Yeah.
live my everyday life as though there was nothing
Yeah,
different.
it took. I went to a chiropractor for years. My mom started taking me when I was a kid, because I fell off the top bunk on
Oh,
at a friend's house and landed on the like nightstand beside it and hit my head or whatever. So she started taking me, and then after that, still continued to, every time she was making an appointment, she would bring me. And then after a while, as an adult, and I was still going, I realized, I'm like, well, so I'm all out of whack. So they readjust me, but aren't all my muscles still going to be like all out of whack? Which is why I got out of the whack in the first place. And so my dad recommended, he found a new chiropractor, and she did acupuncture massage and then cracked you. So she was already like, and so I'm like, this is what's missing with the chiropractic world. I'm like, yeah, that was what never made sense to me. So she, I can't remember what the order was, but yeah, so she relaxes the muscles before she
Right, right.
adjusts you.
Ah.
So yeah, and I thought, oh, well, this must be the way that now chiropractors are trained. And then I've since found out that no, it's not. It was just a fluke. But hopefully, more and more people will add those modalities too, because yeah, it's, what's the point? You're going to walk out, your muscles are just going to put you back out of place because they're so tight,
Oh, I
and you were
didn't
not
know that
showing me the
about.
reason.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
so they don't relax you in the first place?
No, no, they just do their little adjustment, and that's done. It's all done in like a second.
Oh,
They crack you.
right.
But yeah, there's never ever been. Yeah, because I've been to multiple before and after that really amazing one. No, yeah, they just crack you and then you walk out the door. And yeah, it took me like years to realize, well, wait a minute, like obviously my everything went out of place because my muscles are tight and pulling everything out of place. So if you're cracking me, then my muscles are still tight. You haven't done anything to my muscles to relax them.
I see. Okay.
Oh,
So that's different because I haven't been to a chiropractor. I've always gone to an osteopath. They do the
yeah,
relaxation. I think I always feel extremely relaxed after that. But
yeah,
but it has that fixing mindset, like,
mhm,
only
yeah,
when some, like, yeah, it has that fixing mindset, which your everyday daily habits built to that problem. So if you don't change,
Yeah. So if you don't change your habits, you're going to keep
it's
committing
going
that
to
problem.
be
Yeah.
even the way you stand, right? Like everything.
Exactly. I'm always telling my clients, like, you're waiting in line at the grocery store. This is how I used to always wait. And you have all the weight on one foot, your hip jumped out to the side, right? And they're like, well, I have back pain. Well, look at how you're standing. So when I demonstrate mountain pose, which is just like complete, in line standing position, I'm like, this is how I stand in lines now. I make sure that the weight's balanced on both feet, my hips are over my ankles, my shoulders are over my hips.
Yes.
And then, that's, and also like sitting at a desk, like we all have this terrible posture, or just like leaning over and like spine tall, shoulders back and down. Like, little adjustments that you can do.
Yes, that does so much to life. Just like breathing.
Yeah, and it's so easy. That's what I love. But it's so easy. All you have to do.
Easy. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Laurah-Lee. It's been such a
Thank you
pleasure.
so much.